This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Hey, thanks a lot, Manny. And as he just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. And, we've been switching gears over this last couple weeks. We've been spending a lot of time talking about fishing, which has been a blast. But we are now into archery season. The second was kind of like a Christmas Day for the archers in Montana, and they were out getting excited. But one thing I wanted to get into was kind of expanding our ideas here of how we get ready for a hunt. And so I thought, well, why not talk to a guide? Those guys seem to know a lot. My guest today actually knows a tremendous amount. Been a guide for a long time, and his name is Tayler Michels. And Tayler, we're going to spend some time with you just talking about preparing for your hunt, from, getting ready at home all the way to where do we find the game? And then when we're out there and things start maybe not going right, or you can't find what you're looking for, then what do we do? So anyway, before we get into all that, Tayler, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Well, I guess I should start here first, that you're not from Montana, right? When we first met, you knew so much about hunting in Montana. I thought, he must be from Montana, but you're not, right?
I'm from North Dakota, and I have all my years of experience in North Dakota. So, yeah, I work for, just right up the road from Fort Peck there up in Glasgow, Burke Ranch Outfitters in the Missouri Break. So I can speak reasonably well to both sides of the fence and hopefully, make some of those connections and relate that. But yeah, over here in North Dakota, like you said, we have a few things with the regulations and, just kind of how we operate on that level a little bit differently. But yeah, man, I should be able to attack any of your questions.
Well, I think you're a perfect example for that, because of that, here you're a North Dakota resident who works in Montana. So you're going to, of course, nowadays, I imagine that's getting quite familiar to you, but you had to start somewhere. And so I want to pick your brain a little bit. And I want to start with kind of the basics here. So often we, talking about getting in the rut, we're preparing to go out. It's, whenever somebody likes to go out, opening day or whatever. And we miss some of these key things that we should do, a week or two before, the night before, to be prepared so that you're not hurting yourself before you even get started. Talk about how you prepare and get ready to go out on location and start hunting.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like in a new place too. And it's definitely a good topic of conversation right now. Like, it's so popular nowadays. Like the time is good in hunting right now with participation. People are getting out west and they're experiencing new hunting. Even people that hunt a long time in their life or have a long career are getting out and getting after new things. So doing something new or going to a new place is definitely a super, super hot topic in the industry right now. But definitely, more so than, just standard hunting practice of being in shape physically for a hunt, or testing your equipment, shooting your bow. and just kind of having a gear list. A big one, especially when you're traveling to a new place, is access. I think that is like one of the
Yeah.
biggest troublesome things that can just crater a hunt on opening day if you're not prepared. And there's a ton of resources out there, like mapping resources, for example, that can where you're studying maps to try to find out where you want to go on your trip, or inside of a unit, you're trying to, pick specific spots, and you see that there's road access, or you see that there's a designated trail on it, but you don't necessarily do the extensive, or you don't take that next step further to just double check and make sure that it's a trail, like with the Forest Service, or like over here we've got the grasslands, like just making sure that it's an open road that you can take,
Hmm.
or that trailhead is accessible, or making sure that there wasn't a burn that came through, or there wasn't something going on, because so many of us, we don't live where we hunt. We don't know what the conditions are. It could have been open 2 years ago the last time we were there, and now it's not. And those are just like debilitating issues
Yeah.
that can happen right away in a hunt, where you lose a day or you lose 2 days. And or getting back to the mother nature natural disasters, where or maybe there's like a drought. We've been going through a drought the last couple of years, where if you don't get out and do some of your own scouting, or nowadays, like, just pick up the phone, call the FWP, call the Game and Fish, and ask the local office, like, what some of the conditions are like, as far as access or just habitat conditions, because that, I think, early in a hunt, are just some of the most devastating things, like even more so than realizing that the weatherman was wrong, and you packed too many warm clothes versus not warm clothes, or you got there and something. A lot of that stuff is minor, but
Hmm.
access and studying maps, and understanding that, I think, for me, are just some of the toughest stuff that probably gets overlooked, because we've got all these, like I said, we've got all these apps on our phone, we've got GPSs, and it shows there was a road, or that shows there's a 2-track, or we were there 3 years ago, or I know a guy that was there 3 years ago and he says it's okay, and you get there and it's posted, or there's a gate, or it's whatever. That's definitely a big one.
Hmm. And, of course, if someone's, say, hiring Burke Outfitters, or that, yeah, they've done a lot of that research for you and that, but not all of us can do that. So you've brought up a really good point. So what are some of the mapping things that you would recommend that you use? Because it seems like just yesterday that a lot of these mapping services came out, but uh, uh, now there's a ton of them. And I never know which is the reliable one, or what. What do you recommend there? How do you research those?
Well, that's a good question, because the technology nowadays, like, young people are really good at this, because this is like you said, this is the last 5 or 10 years. I can remember even like 10 years ago. I was really early in my career, like, actually, yeah, like 10 years ago, when I started guiding full time. We did everything on handheld GPSs, just to know where we were on public and private land. And it was like a map chip. You bought it,
Yeah.
and it was a micro SD card that went into GPS. Oh, fantastic technology. In fact, before that, it was all paper maps. And there was a lot of trespassing going on, right? Like,
Hmm.
inadvertently, unintentionally, even, to be fair. But then we had those handhelds, and that was just like a monumental piece of technology. And it showed all these access roads. It really opened up a lot of property that people didn't understand, allowed us to study all these things. Now it's as simple as downloading an app on your phone, and there's so many of them. Recommendations, honestly, like, they all do such a fantastic job. And as far as like researching and where to start, the learning curve on that stuff is so steep now. Like, the generation ahead of us, even ahead, the generation ahead of you, Dale, like, they paid that tuition. They went places and they made mistakes, and they broke down their pickups on these remote roads, and 2 tracks, or that they may or may not have had access to. And people didn't know where BLM and private land stopped, and they paid all that tuition. And it was super common over years to do the wrong thing, and learn after the fact. And now there's like no excuse, honestly. Like, if you have a cell phone that, and you have any sort of ability to function it whatsoever, you can have any one of these phone apps like Onyx, Base Map, just a couple of examples. There's so many of them. But that's gonna be like the easiest step one, and some of them it's a subscription, so it costs a couple of dollars for what we spend on these hunts nowadays.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most minimal and one of the best investments you can make. But even if you did want to cut the cost on that, you can still, Google Earth, just right on a laptop at work. You can, or on your cell phone, like, even paper maps are even better than they once were, even though that is kind of that's not even what we're talking about. But even like, if you still want to be old school, even the old school type stuff is better than it once was. But just for starters, that sort of thing. And you got to kind of get a tag first. We're kind of skipping a step that everybody already knows what area they want to hunt. That's obviously part of it. Because if you don't even know where you want to hunt, that is a good starting point for that too. Is to like,
Sure.
well, I don't know where I want to get a tag. I just know I want to archery elk hunt in Montana. And you just open up your Onyx app on your phone and look at you can scan the whole state, and that's fun. Like what we're talking about right now is 90% of hunting. Like, we spend 90% of our time planning for hunting, and 10% actually doing it. Like, so and I think that's why this stuff is really popular.
Well,
as far as conversation,
when you get into that, one thing that I think a lot of people skip over is they look at the, here in Montana, they look at the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks as, okay, well, that's where I get my tag and stuff. And then, of course, that's where the rules and stuff are. But in fact, I think it just came out this morning where they do a ton of forecasting and counts and all that. So if you're really going to get into, okay, where do I search? There is some incredible information out there that talks about just how big the herds are, where they've saw them, and that. Have you used any of that? And if so, how do you use that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on with that. And who does it the best? Are the anglers, the fishermen. Like like with stocking reports and finding lakes and little lakes, like in North Dakota, the potholes that, like finding perch in the winter and walleyes in the summer, like stocking reports. Like, if you're fixing to go hunting and you don't can't figure out how to function your local state's game and fish website and figure out where that information is, figure out who your fishing buddy is, or what person in your friend group or at work you think is the best angler, and have them teach you, because they can really do it. But you're spot on. Like, nowadays, especially with sort of the bigger big game animals, with your antelope and elk and deer and moose and the goats and sheep and all that. They're going to do counts throughout the year. You just got to check them annually. Definitely looking at the success rates and looking at statistics for, the permit draws, the lotteries. You can definitely do some of that cross-referencing. Again, there's kind of, that mathematical, and that goes back to, there's resources out there, that there's people out there right now that make a good living just doing that, like statisticians.
Yeah.
And that is so, like, again, like, I'm not even going to be the person that really tells you how to do that. But if you go on the Game and Fish websites, there, or the Fish, Wildlife, and Park, the information's on there. And if you are just struggling that much, again, getting back to these subscription-based phone apps, or emailers, even just doing it on a budget, like just going on YouTube nowadays, the learning curve on this stuff is unbelievable. That the generation ahead of us, or generations ahead of us, they just didn't have it. They just had to go hunting and find out if the animals were out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I started, I don't hunt anymore. Got a little long in the tooth and got in a bad car wreck, so I don't do it anymore. But when I started growing up on a cattle ranch and that, I mean, I wasn't hunting dinosaurs, but I'm damn near that old. And, and yeah, I mean, just finding a decent map was hard to do. So yeah, we don't have a lot of excuses, but we either don't know about these resources or forget. So those are good. So those of you listening, just on those big game forecasts and some of that just came out in the podcast description, I'm going to put some links down there for you guys and gals for you to be able to click on that. And it shows all across the state and that. So go back to the podcast description and look for those links down at the bottom, and I'll have them for you. So now we've talked a bit about, okay, how to see where we're going to go and all that, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to find the game. So talk a bit about how you do your scouting. Some people, they go, I just look for conditions. I don't want to get out there because I don't want to, run everything off. Some get really into it. What about you? How do you scout the area once you've decided that's where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, very situational based on, like who you are, like your personality, what you want to get out of your hunt. Like for me, hunting is definitely a lifestyle. And so I'm year round. And so scouting is just one of the things that I love to do, like getting out there, scouting elk, scouting mule deer. And I think where I hunt, like where we're at in Northeast Montana and where I hunt in Western North Dakota, as far as like e-scouting, as they call it, like looking on maps, looking on, sitting at home and looking, bringing up your Onyx app and, looking at Google Earth and all those things, like that sort of helps me with like understanding where some, public land or hunting opportunities might be. And then looking at, again, like the road access and just how I'm going to get in there or how many miles I'm going to have to hike. But as far as like the type of scouting, when somebody says scouting to me, that really just means getting out there, getting an opportunity to get out there. And I think that it's super important. I mean, if I have X amount of days that I can take off work for a hunt, there's a lot of scenarios where if you have 5 or 8 days or whatever that you're going to take off the calendar at work, instead of doing that all on that hunt, if you did a 3-day weekend in the summer to travel, if you have to travel to where you're planning on hunting and spend 3 days learning the access points and hiking to understand the terrain, and seeing game is part of that. Like it can be a part of it if you're trying to hunt a specific animal or specific caliber of animal. You want to, see evidence of that. But ultimately, archery elk hunting, you just want to find where, the good areas are and the highest traffic areas are happening. And, the summer patterns are going to be there early in the archery season like that, in so many cases. If you're hunting a migration area or whatever, that usually happens later. So summer scouting can be really good. And then having understanding the access, that's a big one for me. If I'm looking into new areas, a lot of what I do now, is areas that I'm super familiar with and have years into. But if I think back to the real meaningful scouting for me, scouting at home, looking at maps was probably more fun. It's just like part of the hobby and part of the hobby and doing it. But the real scouting that's really meaningful, you just cannot substitute getting out there and breaking in your boots a little bit in the summer and hiking around in those areas. And just learning the sweet spots, having that map in your hand while you're out there looking at it with your binoculars and understanding like just what percentage of the landscape has good bedding for what the prominent wind is going to be for that time of year when you're going to be hunting, and having all those things kind of written down and in your head, so that you have some really good starting points when you get out there. And if you did do that, if you did have those amount of days and you split it up, you did some summer scouting and you go out there, and you give yourself 4 or 5 days to hunt, you're going to be effective or at least fairly dangerous on your first day out there. The other thing, if you can't do that and you plan a hunt in the fall, it's just so common. The first 2 or 3 days, you're just trying to figure stuff out. You're not even going to be a factor or dangerous whatsoever to your target animal until you're halfway through your hunt, and you've expelled a lot of your physical resources.
Yeah.
It affects you, the mental side of things, because hunting is, 80% mental and 40% physical, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Without a doubt. Yeah.
and yeah, like, keeping a good attitude and all that stuff, and feeling like you're getting close to the goal is a big thing. And some of that scouting is just such a big factor when it comes to confidence and being putting the right foot forward, being in a positive place come day one. And we're not even talking about the environmental factors and bad weather or whatever, like, that can really affect those things. But yeah, when you've done the real scouting, that's a big thing for me. If you want to, be more specific, like, when I think about in the breaks, as far as scouting and, as far as like studying habitat, or, knowing where to start, it definitely changes a lot there. Like,
Sure.
from my experience, you'd have to have somebody on that hunts or guides in the mountains a lot to talk about that. But you look at Eastern Montana, especially in the breaks there, Northeast Montana, the Missouri River Country, Western North Dakota. I spend, like, many, many days, like, that's where I spend my life. And things change. We've been going through droughts recently. So if you hunted somewhere 5 years ago and this is your first time back, you're going to find a totally different landscape in many cases, where water sources dried up and didn't come back.
Right.
Or there, water sources have sprung up in new places, or talking about the conditions of the forage on the landscape, which is a big thing with scouting. You don't even have to, in the areas where I hunt and guide, you don't even necessarily have to see game all the time to know that it could be a factor in the fall. If you can just read habitat and know that there's which grass, and where the good grass is,
Mm-hmm.
is a huge one. If you can find good grass in the summer, in the fall, like, that's just such a great starting point in where we're at, because we tend to be pretty dry, just collectively. It's just not a time of year where things are very wet. And then also, don't be surprised if you're not finding animals in the timber, that they'll be out in the open. That's just a big use. So nothing's really off the table as it is, as we talk about habitat and where to be looking, in this part of the
Yeah.
world. Like, like, these elk can find sanctuary. They just need food, water, and they particularly like less pressure. So, yeah, like, if when you have ideas of, like, you come to the breaks, like, for example, to archery elk hunt, if you're not finding animals, in the places where, the internet said that they were going to be,
Yeah.
from 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, like, if that slows you down, like, then you're in tough shape. You got to open up your mind and realize that these animals, they're reacting to stimulation, and they just need food, water, shelter, like, whatever. They can be out in the middle of the sage. They can be, just be on the backside of the breaks. They can be out in the wide open, hiding in plain sight. They can be, and they can be in the timber, and they can be down on the lake. They can be everywhere in between. Every year is different. And it even, once you add the human pressure element, once you start adding, hunting pressure, you got to factor that into your scouting or your hunt planning as well. What time of year you're going to go, to sort of have a bit of a prediction on what might be going on, or what you might be finding out there, that they're just going to go places where
Sure.
nobody's shooting at them, and they have something to eat and drink.
Well, and that's the thing. I've talked to so many great hunters, and a lot of them really get into this. Whether I'm scouting or I'm out starting my first day of hunting, and they really put themselves in that. Okay, I'm an elk right now, and so what am I looking for? What am I thinking? And we often it's hard for us to shift those gears to say, where am I comfortable at and all that? Well, no, you can't be a person anymore. Got to be an elk now,
Right.
and what makes me comfortable. So we're going to take a quick break here, Tayler. And when we come back, I want you to talk a bit about the things that you take with you to be prepared for any kind of condition. Because obviously we can't take everything, but we got to be prepared for everything. So I want you to talk a little bit about that when we come back right after this. I want to talk a bit about Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Gang, when you're ready to invest in a new or pre-owned cargo trailer, or maybe a new truck bed for your work truck, or perhaps an equipment trailer, or even a really cool dump trailer, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is prepared to exceed your expectations. And I mean that. Their unparalleled selection means that they have something for every customer that's sure to please. Their friendly and knowledgeable sales staff, financing, and service departments are prepared to make sure your experience is outstanding, from assisting you while you're making your choice to ongoing maintenance and customization. At Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, they truly do value the opportunity to create a long-term relationship with their customers. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is your locally owned CM truck bed and Diamond C dealer. They offer a wide variety of auto, truck, and trailer accessories and specialize in sales and service of trailers. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is conveniently located at 5680 Expressway right there in Missoula, Montana. They'd love it if you stopped by and saw them, or you can visit them on the web. That's rmtte.com. Again, rmtte.com. Or you can simply just give them a call, 406-549-4243. That's 406-549-4243. And find out how their team can help you find the perfect CM truck bed or Diamond C trailer, or any of the other products and services they have that you might be looking for. Go see them. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. And we are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and I'm with Tayler Michels. He guides in Montana in the Missouri River Breaks, but also he's hunts in North Dakota, lives there most of the time, giving us some great information, ideas, and just kind of getting us opening our mind about getting prepared for our hunt. Tayler, what do you take with you that you can kind of be prepared for everything, especially as an archer? We don't do a lot of road hunting. We're getting out, we're crawling around, all that. You can't take everything. Give us some of the basics that you carry with you that have served you well.
Yeah, man, I think about to answer that, I like coming at it from like a gear standpoint, just thinking about conditions. We can debate like certain specific products and things like that, but from just thinking about conditions, and just what it's like that time of year. You're thinking about September and early October, and you're looking for elk. To be ready for anything, or to be the most prepared, you got to be prepared to dress in layers. Usually it's warm weather. And so a little bit of a cool down or a little bit of a cold front can really like freeze you out when you're, it's like, if you're wearing a bathing suit and then all of a sudden the clouds cover the sun so you can't be wearing long johns all the time, but you got to have, it's definitely a good time of year. It's a good type of hunting, to invest in, into some decent quality clothing that sort of has some of those elements where it's like some weather protection. You need something that can breathe, but also kind of protect you from all the brush and the cactus and everything that's going to be all on top of you. And so I don't know, I'm a big believer in the good clothing, good boots. You can't hunt effectively, if your feet are going through it.
Right.
So investing in boots can definitely be a thing, and making sure that they're broke in before you go hunting. Bringing brand new, sort of unproven stuff, if you're tearing the tags off of your boots the first day of a hunt, or if you're hunting with somebody and you look over and you see that they're, pulling the tags off of, their clothes or their boots, keep an eye on them, make sure that they're okay, because, overheating and or getting blisters on your feet is definitely a big thing. But first aid kit is always a thing, because, somebody's going to be bleeding or scraping on something or whatever. And I feel like that keeps me sort of prepared and ready for anything. I can hunt more confidently if I know that if I can, tape up a wound, or,
Right.
put a dislocated shoulder back in or something like that. It's like, so being prepared for that, I think helps you, helps your psyche a little bit, in that regard. Definitely some recommendations on, like optics and things like that. I think good binoculars, spotting scope is more of a, something that I use in rifle season when I'm really trying to break down like trophy game animals and I need to see them from a long ways out. I need to be sure that it's the right one before I go there. Archery elk hunting, the real tradition of it is just creating opportunities for yourself. And there's all kinds of game animals. You go through all that, you do the calling, you plan this trip, you're out there, you're really immersed in it. Usually, whatever good opportunity comes your way, whether it's a spike bull, any branch antlered bull, like man, archery hunting, a success is there. You don't need to study those animals to know that if they're worth going after. So just having a good pair of like 10 power binoculars,
Yeah.
is the thing, and not necessarily lugging around a big spotting scope like you would, maybe in rifle season or on a different type of hunt. And the reason that's important to say is because, again, a 5-7 day hunt, if somebody's, just really, wants to have that spotting scope along, man, they're going to be carrying an extra 3-4 pounds for that many days. By day 6 or 7, it'll kind of wear on them.
Yeah.
Like it kind of wears on you. It kind of wears on your shoulders, and it would for a lot of people. And so yeah, I don't particularly recommend. And when my clients come in, I really try to steer them away from that. Like just being a minimalist. And then the other thing would be a more mental side of things. Like just plan on being fairly miserable for about 30 to 40% of the day. If you can get over that, then you don't need to carry a puffy coat. You don't need to carry necessarily any extra gear that is going to weigh you down for 70 to 80% of the day. 70 to 80% of a 7-day hunt's a lot. And you're carrying around something that's ultimately useless, other than to try to be a creature comfort, for those small little windows. Just plan on being a little bit tougher. Definitely the archery elk hunters that just have a little bit more of that grit, a little bit more of that mental toughness is worth, it's a priceless, commodity that, no amount of gear, jackets or underwear or gloves or hats or optics, could ever possibly be worth. So be a little bit tougher, be kind of gritty, invest a little bit in your boots and a good pair of binoculars, and practice your shooting and be in a little bit of shape, and that's a total package.
Now, are you one of those guys that is like really big on being scentless, and so you've got all these different ways of hiding your scent or all that? I know some guys are just fanatics about it. I mean, even in the fishing world, we see it where guys are wearing surgical gloves to bait their hooks and that. Where do you fall on that side of it? I mean, obviously you're dealing with an animal that is super keen on their surroundings. So, giving up your location could mean that you miss the shot you've waited for the whole season. So you don't want to do that. Where do you fall in that area?
Well, just don't let them smell you. Like just be downwind. It's also like spot and stock hunting for us, and calling, where you're trying to manage or manipulate the scenario, the setup to your favor, and the wind is like the number one factor of it all. So like, yeah, like they're gonna smell you. They're basically gonna smell you. Basically in every scenario when you're out in the open hunting, the way that I typically do and the way that I guide. Um, so yeah, like that being said, uh, I could smell like anything. My strategy is to just always be downwind.
Hmm.
So I'm not one
So
of those guys that's fanatical. I don't lose confidence because that's really the conversation. Isn't like, I can't make a recommendation on a scent control that's going to be a factor in somebody's hunt. Literally, like, and I can't. I can't say just be downwind and that, it's like, it's all about people's confidence. So when I see somebody or I have clients that come in that are just fanatical, like you said, I've run into them all and I,
mhm.
and I love them. I love it. In fact, you pick up on good things, but if they're spending it on their confidence. They're investing that money or that strategy
Yeah, that's a good
into
point.
just
Yeah.
building confidence. They just want to be out there and be confident that, you know, that they can be successful. And some people, if their clothes don't, spend the night in a sealed, vacuum sealed bag that has the scent control
Right.
inside of it or whatever, then they just can't be effective the next day because that's all they're going to think about. That's what they're going to blame every issue on, and they're not going to be able to focus, or just they're not going to be able to hunt with confidence. Where I don't lose confidence. I wear my hunting clothes as soon as I get up out of my sleeping bag in the morning, and I might wear it in the cook tent, and we might, make bacon for breakfast, and so for a couple hours in the morning, I can probably smell a little, I can
Like
smell a little
breakfast.
bit
Yeah.
of breakfast on my collar,
Yeah.
but at no point I'm never going to sacrifice or pivot the success of my hunt or my client's hunt on being upwind of that elk. Like that is something I can control before it happens. And when we do get winded, which happens also all the time, like it wouldn't, in my opinion, I've seen it
Mhm.
all. I've done it all. I've got it all. I've got all the gear. I've got the scent lock bags. I've got all the gadgets. I've got all the spray. I use it at times when I feel like I'm getting a little bit rank or out of control.
Mhm.
And I definitely want my clients to know that I care enough so that there's some situations where it's definitely appropriate. But man, at the end of the day, just focus on your confidence. And if you can't be confident without that, um, and I think, and that answer is different for everybody. You got to do it if you're not going to be confident without it. And if you're wondering whether or not it's a big factor, like there's so many other things that have to happen correctly before that animal even has a chance to smell you. And if you focus on those things, you're going to kill a lot of elk, with or without the scent lock bag. But um, again, that's archery elk hunting. If you're hunting in a blind where you're stationary or you're locked down, like, and there's some products out there that can really, really help you. And definitely, there's a lot of whitetail hunters that,
Sure.
the best information on scent control is gonna, is comes out of the whitetail world. So if you're a beginner and you're clueless as to what this part of the conversation is about, go there. Go to research these products and watch what some of these top end guys in the whitetail world that are hunting in stands and ground blinds. They're going to teach you what really works ultimately, like the
Mhm.
type of products that actually do what they say they're going to do. But archery elk, man, this is the long version of this answer. Like archery elk hunting, if I do everything else right, I'm going to kill every elk I want to kill, whether I smell like bacon or not.
That you've really touched on a I think a very important thing, and that is that confidence. When you exude confidence, it really does make a difference.
Oh
And
yeah, it's everything. It's
and
everything.
and again, when you think about that big bull that you've dreamed about your whole life and all that, who is, I mean, he's the big bull and has all the prize harem and all that for a reason, because he's confident. He
Yeah.
knows where he's at, what he's doing, and he knows nobody messes with me. So I think that you're going to exude it one way or the other, either that you don't know what you're doing or you feel great about it. And I think that you're really onto something there. Don't get get so worried about it. Just prepare the way that's going to make you the most comfortable and confident out there that you can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. That's the whole conversation. And that really comes down to like every debate, every popular debate, that's out there in hunting, scent control's a big one. It's so situational where it's a big factor, and it's really like, all the brand debates of like, what bow do you shoot? What clothes do you wear? What camouflage do you like? I do what gives me confidence. I do what I have experience with. So you get to some in my career, or to the point in my career where I've guided for 10 years, hunted my whole life. And I'm out there every day of the season that I can be out there. I'm approaching over 500 days of guiding in my career. It's like you get to the point where I've gone through all those phases. I've gone through all the phases where everything mattered so much, and then it didn't, and then other things mattered way more than it. And the pendulum is always swinging, and you're trying to get more steady in the middle where you can kind of, I can see something, I can put my hands on it, I can feel it, I can size it up and know whether it's going to be useful, before I even, you have to buy it or have to make a decision on it. And in most cases, the elk do not care what camouflage you have. They don't care what brand of boots you have. They don't care what your bow is. They don't care if they don't care anything about you, like at all. I can't make that point. And the one thing they do care about is if you're there and you're confident that you're going to win.
Right.
They're just like an opponent on a battlefield. Like if they were to see you eye to eye and they see you shaking in your brand new boots, in your brand new camouflage, and like, they don't care. They know that you're not a factor. And somebody that wears all the wrong kind of camouflage and mix and matches his stuff, and it's all hand-me-downs. And the guy that has a pair of boots that just, who knows what brand it is? He probably doesn't even know what brand it is, but they don't give him blisters. And he's practiced with his bow that is 10 years old, and he takes care of it, and he maintains it, and he can drive tacks, at 100 yards, whatever. Like when a big bull elk meets eye to eye with that guy, he's already dead. That guy, by the time an elk knows that guy was ever there, it's a done deal, right? Like, so you want to be that guy, ultimately when you're doing all these things, you just want to make your buying decisions. You want to make your hunting decisions based upon, what's going to put meat in the back of the truck and not what's going to impress Instagram.
Right. Good point. Hey, let's take one more quick break. And then when we come back, I want to ask you a bit about when do you decide this area is wrong? We're here, but we got to move. It's just time to change gears. So let's talk a bit about that, of what tells you I made a mistake where I'm at, and we're going to change. That's coming up next, right here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Like any business, when you hear from customers and what they say about a business, that really says a lot. Dave and Carol sent this in about a project they did. Dave says, Carol and I would like to publicly thank you and Superior Hardwoods for our new hardwood floor. From our first visit to Superior Showroom to your final inspection, everything was perfect. Selection, price, and workmanship. We particularly like the fact that we did not have to deal with the usual array of people: sales, delivery, removal of old carpet, installation and finish of new floor. From the start to finish, we dealt only with you. No surprises, no subcontractors. We were particularly pleased with the installation and finish of the floor. You were always at the door when you said you'd be, and you worked hard and efficiently and provided us with an absolutely beautiful new bedroom floor. It's always a bonus for us to deal with a locally owned company. It's even better when that company offers a superior product, a fair price, and exemplary service. That says a lot, doesn't it? I'll tell you what, folks, when you get done listening to this podcast, I want you to go to superior-hardwoods.com, superior-hardwoods.com. Read through some more of their testimonials. Take a look at all the different woods you have. In fact, in a way, you kind of guide yourself through the woods and see everything there is. Then get a hold of the folks. Get a hold of John and the rest of the gang at Superior Hardwoods. You can call them at 406-235-7452. They're located in Missoula, so you can always stop by and see them. If you go to 5120 Highway 93 South, that's just south of Missoula, take a look at what they have there. You're going to be pleasantly shocked at what they've been doing and what they have. Well, heck, they've been doing it since 1977, so they've got it down. Superior Hardwoods of Montana. That's superior-hardwoods.com. Okay, we are back here, Downrigger Dale, along with Tayler Michels, and we're talking about getting ready for the hunt, what you bring, what you do. Also, I want to talk a bit about, Tayler, when it's time to shift gears. And I think this one gets to be a really, really tough one. We've gone through all the research. We've looked at the maps. We've looked at the online. We've done all this research and all that. And now we're out there and we're into day 3. And I mean, we have seen nothing. Zip. When do you pull the plug on an area and move on?
Oh man, we could do 3 hours just on this. This is the $1 million question. It really can't be answered, perfectly. It's so situational. But I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Because like that sort of decision for me when I'm guiding, especially, even just hunting on my own, like that decision, I'm trying to make that decision, or I'm asking myself that decision probably multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And it big changes. Like, do I need to be making a big change in my location?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing that you're usually thinking about in the moment because you're somewhere and you're not seeing game. But it can sometimes be a time of day deal, where you're going to certain places that, you're either too early or too late, or you got to read the room a little bit. I can break down a few scenarios, that, like in the breaks, like my biggest example would be, like where I guide in the Missouri River breaks, where the habitat is really diverse and the animals can be a lot of places. And so to find a pattern, or to find an area where a pattern is happening, by a pattern, I mean, like, it's a large area. The elk are living in the trees, to where I can go to multiple drainages that have a lot of trees that are good for a certain wind that I can access. And I can probably expect to find elk in any one of them. And if to break down a pattern, or to try to break down where a zone where a bunch of elk are, sometimes you just gotta, if you're somewhere new and you have no information whatsoever, you just gotta start somewhere and start breaking it down. You just gotta pick an area. So, like in the breaks, maybe you start down on the lake, or you start low, and you're just covering a ton of ground, and by hiking as much as you can. Like you said, archery, elk hunting, there's no substitute for being able to be mobile physically. Mm-hmm. And you get into some of these more remote areas. If you're not seeing anything, I mean, for me, I'd be hard pressed to spend more than a day. Like some of these areas, it takes a full day just to get into. And I'm not even talking about like a backpack hunt where you're going in somewhere to camp. But like, if I'm covering a significant amount, like square miles of a specific type of habitat in a zone that should be good,
Mm-hmm.
and I am not seeing fresh sign, um, like not even talking about other hunters, other hunting pressure,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like I'm seeing habitat that could have animals in it. It has holding capacity, and I'm not seeing them. They're just not there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go 2 miles down. Well, the question is, do you keep looking in good areas like that look just like that, and you just keep hopping down? Or do you make a bigger adjustment and you go find a different zone of different habitat?
Mm-hmm.
So especially early in a hunt, I'll make those types of decisions where if I'm just way behind the eight ball and I'm like not seeing anything, I change the entire scenery. I'll travel 10 miles and find a different zone of different habitat. And then if it happens again, I'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try, I'll be hunting from the top, I'll hunt from the bottom, I'll be in the middle, I'll you gotta pull out all the stops and let the elk slow you down. Just have your foot on the gas pedal, so to speak, until you start to see those signs of life or start to hear bugles, or you're seeing animals. You're seeing, the chance for a potential opportunity where there's some elk doing some things that look like they're unpressured that you can probably hunt. Um, and then let them slow you down. Then study where they're at. Then find out if it's an opportunity to hunt those animals, and be a little bit more patient at that time when you're actually in animals. And then, if it's not a perfect scenario, maybe keep them in the cooler or keep them in your back pocket. But now you kind of have an idea where, okay, it's just like fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're putting a pattern together, like, oh, okay, like this is the type of habitat that they're in. This is the kind of area that I'm in. And you start to kind of read the room, read the surroundings of like, well, it probably wasn't an accident that they're here. They're not super pressured. It's kind of remote. I don't see anybody else or very many other people in here. I'm seeing a herd, whatever. I'm seeing 10 elk or 20 elk or whatever, or three different groups in the same drainage, the same basin. Like you hop over into the next basin, maybe it's a little better for the wind over there. Like you'll start to put those pieces together. But yeah, I mean, like I would say early in a hunt, I am asking myself, is this where I need to spend my time, or do I got to make a move? And early in the hunt, I'm making big changes. And later in the hunt, it's smaller changes. It's more small, the fine details. Cause once you find some elk, then you just kind of got to work out the details of that situation, and you'll start creating opportunities for yourself. But I definitely don't do it perfect all the time.
Yeah. Well,
That's just sort of where my mind is
mm-hmm.
at. But I would say, like, for the average archer that struggles with that in their hunts, where they, again, it's a destination hunt. You're not hunting where you live, so you got to travel. You're taking time off work, and you're there for 7 days. Every day that you're there is like, that, and that's a dream. That's what we wait all year for. 51 weeks a year for that, waiting for that 1 week that we get to go hunting. So many of us, like, when you're on that hunt and you're making those decisions day by day, hour by hour, even at times, um, when you have it in your head that you're not finding animals, and then you keep repeating, you keep going and looking you're looking for elk in the same situation. You're not making big enough moves. Whether it's based on hunting memories, that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst thing we can do, is assume that the elk are going to do the same thing they did last year, that 1 week that I was here.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, that can sort of be a starting point, or that can be
Sure.
somewhere to look. But man, like, you got to make a big changes when you're answering that question. And I think for a lot of people, when they try to answer that question, should I stay or should I go? you know, I think a lot of people probably are perceiving that as like, well, I'm not gonna change the trailhead that I'm on. I'm not gonna change, you know, the changes that people are making aren't big enough. And they get to the end of a hunt, and you know they encountered elk on 2 of their 7 days they were out there, and and you know that's just a story. That's a hypothetical story that you hear a lot, or you know, and you know, maybe singing the blues because it was a really tough hunt and it's just hard to be on animals, but you hunted the same drainage, you hunted the same, you know, the same thing, and you know you were making small adjustments to whether how much time you glassed or how, you know, if you called, or what it was to run into animals. But to me, should I stay or should I go? um, as soon as you start losing confidence in what you're doing, it all comes back to
Back
confidence.
to that. Yep.
You know, back to that, have it in your strategy. I guess in my opinion, in my experience, I hunt with confidence, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm somewhere, even if I'm really far from the pickup and I am a brutal hike out of there, if I spend a minute feeling like I'm doing the wrong thing, that brutal hike out of there isn't going to last that long. You just got to get it done with so you can go somewhere else where you can get that confidence back.
Right.
Don't be factoring in, oh, then I'm going to lose 3 hours of my hunt. I'm going to lose 4 hours of my hunt backing out of here. I got all this equity in it. Well, you got equity in nothing.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't have equity in anything because your time is limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so get out of there if you're losing confidence. And that being said, the amount of times that I've left a spot, or left an area because I lost confidence and somebody went in there after me and killed an elk, like that's probably happened many, many
Yeah.
times, but I would never regret that decision because they just did it better than me, right? They had confidence, and I didn't. And, you know, in my career, I like hunting with confidence. I would give myself, you know, I would bet on myself going somewhere else, finding an elk and killing it. And then I'll come back and shake that guy's hand that went in after me. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like every one of those scenarios is all good.
Mm-hmm.
And keep that in mind when you go somewhere and you're coming into an area that you have confidence in and you see people leaving empty handed. It's sort of a data point. You got to be like, okay, well, maybe they didn't see anything or whatever. They might just have lost confidence and be leaving. If you can go into an area with confidence after a dozen hunting groups have been in somewhere, and if they didn't hunt it right, you can go in there and have all kinds of success. So it's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, talking
Sure.
out of both sides here, but you definitely you gotta think like that. You gotta figure out how to have confidence.
Do you have a plan B in mind when you're planning your hunt? Usually to say, okay, this is my priority one, but if that busts on me, I've got this in my back pocket.
I pretty much do all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Like as a hunting guide, this is a guide thing.
Sure.
Though, you know, when I'm hunting on my own,
but you're guiding yourself
probably
at that
very
point.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, and so the decisions are made a little bit differently for sure. But as a guide, you know, I have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to know as much as you possibly can. It's definitely what any of my clients, you know, when they spend, you know, hard-earned dollars to go on a hunt, and I'm their guide.
Yeah, you're spending their time and their money, so you better have it right.
Yeah. And I want them, like I want them to have that expectation of me. I think that definitely makes a good guide as part of it, and to have, maybe none of us are going to have every answer correct, but I want to have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I at least have an answer for a lot of things. And yeah, I would say every single day I go out, being open-minded, keeping that good attitude, having confidence. And yeah, I always have plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. And a lot of times it's like plan A1, plan A2, where, you know, I kind of got the area figured out, but how I wanted to hunt it, the wind changed or the animals weren't the way I wanted them to. And so you make you know, again, you're, you know, talking about those detailed, those smaller adjustments, because you're on elk, you just got to figure out how to do it just right. But yeah, as far as the big adjustments, absolutely. You know,
Good
the guys
advice.
that I work with, as far as guiding, every time we go out, we know what each other's plan A, B, and C is.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't, you know, get our wires crossed. But yeah, I think that's super important.
Well, I definitely want to have you come back because you're giving us all kinds of great information. But before we leave, I want to talk a bit about seasons. And, so often we talk about getting in a rut. We start thinking, well, that's the only time I'm going to get the bull of my dreams. Got to do it in the rut. Got to have then. And if I don't get it then, well, then I'm just going to go, find the cow for the freezer. Can you get what you're looking for pretty much any time of the hunting season?
Oh yeah. Again, speaking from where I'm at, when you look at eastern Montana or northeast Montana, the Missouri River breaks, like it's not a migratory herd. These animals are here throughout the year. They're nomadic. They kind of move around based on habitat and availability and whatnot. But as far as like staying within the unit, like there's always elk in the unit to hunt. I think that answer could be slightly different if you were hunting like migratory hunts, where there's certain units where there's just not elk.
Only that time
at
of
certain
the year.
times of year, and every year's yeah. So keep that in mind. But as far as like when you're hunting, it's just a little different styles of hunting, and so certain styles of hunting, certain personalities, traits are gonna have a more success, or they're gonna understand hunting different parts of the season. But yeah, there's no question that I think that is definitely kind of crippling for a lot of people that are sort of getting into archery elk hunting, or they just have those preconceived notions that the only reason to archery elk hunt is during the rut, to hear bugles and have bulls, angry bulls come running in at you. Because the reality is, as much as we do it, for the entire season, every year, 6 weeks long in Montana, like we're hunting them every day that we can be guiding, every day that we have clients.
Yeah.
Like we go through all those seasons, and early season and late season, when hunting is still fantastic, it just gets so much less pressure. So yeah, I think that a lot of people, it's almost like they're not even considering hunting a different part of the season. Like it's like elk hunting is only happens like in middle of September, when like that's just the only time that I'm gonna go, because that's the time hunting is the best. Like that's all relative. Like it's different for everybody. If you're struggling to have success, like if you're somebody that's been on a handful of hunts, like DIY hunts, like you're trying to build your skills and your confidence as an elk hunter and go, and be successful and be one of these people that are dangerous to a big elk someday.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever you go, like so many people, that's when hunting pressure is a huge deal. You go in the rut, you go in mid-September, that's when so many more people are going, the participation is high. And that can just be such an excuse so many times. So that's a big conversation. Like learn how to hunt with pressure, learn how to hunt pressured elk. Calling is different. The locations they'll be in is way different. It's a totally different skill to build. The lowest hanging fruit, in my opinion, for success for somebody that is, an intermediate or a sub-intermediate hunter that is looking for their first chance at a big bull, or their first, real chance at, just multiple opportunities on the same hunt. Hunting unpressured elk is going to happen early in the season and or towards the end of the season. There's just more, there's just less people out there.
Yeah.
And that is such a humongous factor. And the amount of, we've had clients, the stories go on, clients that have always hunted in the rut, or their past experience has always been in the rut. And we try to talk them into booking with us early, because that's your best chance at a big bull. There's no question about it in the breaks. Your best chance at a big bull is on opening day, because they're unpressured. Like opening day is they are unpressured elk. And they typically aren't busted up yet from, fighting in the rut. Not that they all do, but that's
Sure.
a factor,
Yeah.
as far as like trophy quality. And just unpressured elk that are doing what elk do. That's your shot. That's your chance. That's what it is. And we take people hunting, and it's their first time where they hunted and they only heard bugles at night, and the elk, the bulls weren't chasing cows, and you kind of hunt them spot and stock, like. And we'll get a chance at a 6x6 bull every day.
Right.
We'll give them a chance to shoot an arrow every single day, and they might have gone 10 years hunting for 7 to 10 days a year, in that amount of time, and they shot 3 arrows at, raghorns because it was the rut. They didn't get to hunt the way they wanted to. They knew where the elk were because of summer scouting, but then when they got to the trailhead, there was, 10 other vehicles there, guys on horseback. Like think everything is different. Everything changes.
Well, you're saying a lot of things that I learned when I was a kid. There was an old guy that, an old rancher that he was retired from ranching, but he still loved to get out. And he taught me that whole thing of thinking like a bull. And he used to say to me, when I say, I don't know, this doesn't look too good. He'd go, well, what's your inner bull telling you? And I actually named my inner bull, so I mean, he became my partner, and he said, always check with him before you start changing stuff up. What's he telling you? And you start thinking that way. And I always looked at my inner bull as this trader bull that's, out showing me where his buddies are and all that. And I know it sounds silly, but it worked. It really worked, because now you're thinking that way. And he never hunted during any of these high pressure times of the season. He called it, amateur week or, whatever. He really liked to, he had his spots and that, but he could read anything about anywhere just by thinking that way. So I think you've made some really good points, and the confidence side of it, I think is you're spot on. But Tayler, we've run out of time, but I definitely want to check back with you. And is it okay if do you want folks that have questions for you to contact me, and then I'll get you those questions, or do you want me to give them your email, or because I know some people are probably going to have a few questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love all that. I love all the interaction, and anybody that ever has any questions. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. You can find me on some of the social media accounts or whatever. With
you guiding in that, I think it might be easier if everybody, you folks always have my email right down there in the podcast description. It's just, shoot me any questions you have for Tayler, and then I'll hunt him down and track him down, because I know you're going into your super busy time of the year. So I'll get you the questions, and we'll check back with Tayler and get those answered for you folks, because those are all good stuff. And then also, if you would like to, book a trip with Burke Outfitters and Tayler down the road, I trust it's okay to put that website down and all that, so people can look at that, because you guys have certainly had some great success over the years.
Yeah, man. BurkeRanchOutfitters.com. You can find us. We're based out of Glasgow. Yeah, we hunt the north side of the breaks. We do stuff in 630 and the 620s over there. And if you guys can get my buddy the captain consistently elk, which you guys have, I would. I think his last bull, I got him on the last archery bull that he shot. That Boone and Crockett spike bull. Man, great stories there. We could definitely do that. Well, whole show on that.
I'll tell you, they can do anything if they can help him get one. So, be sure and do that. Tayler, thanks so much for spending so much time with me, and good luck out there, and keep us posted and send us some pictures so we can kind of track your success this season.
Right on, man. Will do. Thanks for having me, Dale.
All right. Tayler Michels, everybody. And look at those podcasts in the description. I'll get you those emails and links and that. And by all means, send us questions. We'll get you the answers. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And good hunting. Be safe out there. And remember, always say thanks to that landowner if you use them.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to RMTTE.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at MontanaOutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.